When's the last time you actually sat down and embraced silence? When's the last time you put your phone away or went for a walk and simply unplugged from the noise? If you're like most people, then it's been a while. And perhaps you haven't in years. Maybe you can't even remember when that last time was. And if you're in that situation, then I can't blame you because that was me for a long time. You see, what I learned is that the reason why we tend to fill all these empty spaces within our day, the reason why we feel like silence is so uncomfortable is because what it does is actually reveal to you what's going on within your mind. These moments of silence that you may take throughout the day, they don't create discomfort, but what they do is they unravel or reveal the discomfort within you. You see, many of us have underlying stress, anxiety, perhaps depression, or underlying events that we haven't processed through within our own minds. And because of this, we don't want to face whatever that is, so we just fill our minds with constant noise, constant stimulation. But while that might help in the short term, while that might help right now, that's only making the problem even bigger beneath the surface of your awareness. So in today's video, I'm going to talk about why silence feels so uncomfortable, what you can do about it, and how to essentially break this conditioning that you've been creating within yourself for many years, all right? So let's begin. Through years of scrolling and watching TV and always having a podcast playing, we have been systematically retraining our nervous system, and not in a positive way. You see, when you're constantly stimulated, you're creating this conditioned loop within you at the subconscious level. Your nervous system, which is overseen by the subconscious mind or the unconscious mind, whichever you'd like to call it, this always stays in that fight or flight mode where you never really get the chance to take a step back and unwind properly. Think about it. When most people think of unwinding, they think of unwinding with maybe a glass of wine or a can of beer and a TV show on, and maybe some music playing. And while those things do have their place, that's not unwinding. You're just getting yourself more amped up. And as a result, our nervous systems have evolved to this high input environment where there's always some sort of noise, some sort of lights, something to pay attention to, even if it's not consciously. Just something in the background that's playing. And when you don't experience something in the background, or when you're not always flooding your mind with new information, then your brain thinks something is wrong. This is what sets your nervous system into this overdrive state, this state of heightened anxiety, of heightened stress, lower awareness. And that's why so many people, when you take away their devices, when you take away whatever their stimulation technology is, they feel a bit antsy. And I'd argue that that's why more people than not in modern times experience more stress and more anxiety and restlessness throughout their everyday life. They could be in a car or washing the dishes or going outside to take the trash out. And many people report feeling like they're on edge, like something's about to happen. When in reality, nothing's about to happen. In many cases, at least. What it is their nervous system subconsciously reacting to the fact that they have no external stimuli happening. And this is literally addiction, whether you want to admit it or not. It's literally addiction. And I don't mean just addiction to your phone, but it's an addiction to the feeling that your nervous system provides through the behavioral conditioned loop of always being constantly stimulated. Now, from my experience, when you embrace silence voluntarily, when you go for a long walk with no music, when you wash the dishes and do house chores without listening to a podcast, when you can go for a drive in your car without having the radio on, you allow your unconscious mind to essentially self-generate its own meaning. And that's a very powerful thing, especially since we're living in times where more people than not don't really have their own unique opinions. More people than not don't truly understand their deeply held values. They haven't taken the time to examine what those beliefs are and make up the substructures of those values. And much like how a muscle would atrophy if you don't use it, the same thing happens within your mind. When there are parts of you that parts within your mind that you simply aren't utilizing on a regular basis, then you lose the ability to do that thing. So in this context, that would mean a weakened ability to solve problems creatively. It would mean a weakened ability to think critically about a stressful situation that you're in. It would mean a weakened ability to tap into your intuition and figure out these insights to whatever problem you're facing or whatever social dynamic you find yourself in. And these things, we don't tend to pay attention to them consciously, but when you look at most people in social situations especially, you'll notice that many of them have a very hard time navigating a basic conversation. People don't know what to say. People don't know how to communicate. People don't know how to ask the right questions or listen attentively. And I think a lot of this comes down to the fact that we are very overstimulated, and this muscle within our mind has weakened. Now, going back to the point I made about understanding your beliefs, which make up the substructure of your values internally, what I've noticed is that if you spend so much of your time consuming the ideas and opinions of other people online, then that essentially takes away from your ability and even your willingness to create those ideas within you. And the interesting part is that those people you might be watching online, perhaps you even think me, maybe somebody else. I like to think it's not me, but many of the people you see online are simply parroting the ideas that they have gotten from somebody else. They haven't come to these conclusions for themselves. They haven't developed those internal mental structures which make up their perception of reality, because they themselves are also very plugged into being constantly stimulated. They aren't embracing silence within their own life. And going back a few years within my life, I remember experiencing this firsthand back in 2022. So at that time in 2022, this was when I first discovered mindfulness. Mindfulness isn't necessarily a sit-down meditation where you cross your legs and get into a lotus position with your eyes closed. Mindfulness is just being totally present in the very moment that you're in. Whether that's doing house chores, going for a walk, when you're at the gym, when you're in a conversation with somebody else, no matter where you are, it's just when you are totally immersed in that very present moment. So what I started doing in 2022 was going for these very long walks. I'm talking like 4 miles, 5 miles, 6 miles, just with no agenda. I would just go. And this is when I was overcoming an injury, so I really couldn't do a lot of exercise at the gym, at least for my legs. So I figured, hey, let me start walking. And I'd go without my phone, and what I realized was that within 5-6 minutes of being away from my house, my mind would just start flooding with the craziest ideas. I would come to these intuitive insights that I simply never had ever experienced before. I'd have these flashes, these random thoughts and these wild ideas that just seemed completely foreign to me. And I had no idea why it was happening, how it was happening. But obviously I was like, hey, this is amazing. So I would get back home, write as many of those ideas down that I could remember, and then I'd do it again the next day and the next day. And this is what led me to start writing online and start exploring more of these topics you see with the books behind me. And yeah, it all started from stepping back from the noise and embracing silence. I'd been so plugged into that online world, into the opinions of other people, into the beliefs of other people, to the point where I never took the time to examine what those ideas and beliefs were within me. I'd never given my mind a chance to just do its thing. And it turns out my mind could do pretty interesting things. So I don't know your situation. I don't know where you live, but what I do know is that if you're like most people, then you probably spend way too much time consuming the ideas of other people. And there's a good chance that those ideas that you're consuming are the ideas of other people within this echo chamber of shallow surface level ideas online. And all right, I can't blame you there because that was me. But what I will say is that every single day, even for 5 to 10 minutes, you gotta embrace silence. Whether that's on a walk outside, whether that's stretching before you go to bed, whether that's in a formal meditation. I don't know. It's totally up to you. You're going to figure that out for yourself. But what you'll begin to realize is that many of the problems you're facing can be very easily solved. And you already have all the answers you need. At one point or another, you've come across the information, or you have met the person, or you've gone to the place that holds the ideas you need to solve that problem, whatever that problem is within your life. And you'll notice that it only becomes accessible to you when you can voluntarily and intentionally embrace silence within your everyday life. So, yeah, hope that makes sense. Hope you enjoyed this. Thank you for watching, and I'll speak to you soon.